Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting, August 27th, 2013. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, little housekeeping before we get into the meat of the agenda. There are openings on the following committees: the Audit Committee, the Bike Path Committee, the Business Development Commission, Carver Cultural Council, Carver Housing Authority, a state representative, Commission on Disability, Earth Removal Committee, a growers representative, Finance Committee, Local Housing Partnership Committee, Marcus Atwood Trustees, Old Colony Regional Vote Tech School Committee, 2 postings for that. That's important positions we need to get filled. And Town Building Study Committee. Please contact the Selectmen's Office for an application. Also, donations to the food pantry can be made at the Council on Aging or the Public Library. The need has not gone away. Just because it's not the holiday season, that doesn't mean that the need doesn't exist. Please dig down deep and be as generous as you can. We'd like to think that we're able to take care of our own, and I think so far we've been doing a pretty good job. So thank you for your past support, and hopefully you'll be able to continue that. Okay, I also got a note here. The Young People's Alliance of Carver, YPAC, are the initials, would like to invite the public to an open house to be held on September 7th, noon to 4 p.m. at the Benjamin Ellis Building, 247 Tremont Street. They will be holding a bake sale and a raffle. Does somebody have some background on this? Can shed a little light on what this new organization is?
I guess I've been involved with it with Clark Griffith for the beginning, and we started with the hopes that we would affiliate with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and that didn't work out. We've established, or I haven't established, I haven't been as active as other people like Mr. Shores and Sarah, but it's a great group, a great effort on behalf of activities for kids, and they're getting their feet on the ground. Clark has put a lot of money into the building. It's a great site, and we'd love to see the public and people come out there and see what it is, and at the same time see the kind of activities that will be offered to the kids and how they'll work it, and at the same time have a bake sale and a raffle. And Sarah, can you add something to that?
I think you said it very well. The raffle is a helicopter tour for 2, donated by James Dayhill of Firefly Helicopters, which is a Carver-based business. And there will also be, we're trying to get some kids there to play music. There'll be arts and crafts for kids and possibly weightlifting demonstrations, and they can try their hand at that.
Geez, maybe I'll come down and compete. What do you think, Chip? You and I get down there?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
May I
ma'am.
ask 2 questions, please? What happened with the Boys and Girls Club? Because that's a great organization and strongly funded. And 2, the people that had originally volunteered to help, there were a lot of community residents, including myself. Have they been, I know I haven't been notified, so I'm just wondering if you have any plans to need volunteers, and how did this one form? I'm just curious.
Always, what happened, I think, with the Boys and Girls Club, it was going to be a big expense to affiliate with the national organization. And at that point, I was involved a little with the youth, the board of directors in Plymouth, and I know I felt that when they were fundraising, they went big time, and I felt it was a little awkward for us here in Carver. So we invited the YMCA to come in, and the YMCA had a much more flexible program so that we could work with them and have programs here in Carver that didn't necessarily go under their jurisdiction, but then they would work with us on other activities. So they seem to be the most logical organization to work with. So that's kind of where you get the YAPC, the YPCA, see, the YPAC.
Say that 3 times quick.
Acronyms get me. What I did want to say was that the YMCA part, I wanted to point that out. And so,
That's important.
did I say that? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
No,
did
no,
I?
it's-
Roger, you got anything you think of that can be added to the commentary? Roger Shores is one of the board of directors, and he's been working hard on the open house on September 7th.
One of the reasons that we chose not to go with Plymouth was the demographics were different and the programs were different, and they wanted pretty much total authority over what we did. So, being from Carver and living in Carver, we decided to be independent. It's basically a youth group for both youth in need as well as youth not in need. We'll generally be open on hours of about 3 in the afternoon till 8 at night. We're starting out small. We've incorporated, and we've applied for our tax exempt 401B, I think it is.
501(c)(3), I think.
501(c), yeah, excuse me. That's been applied for. But it's a youth center.
Okay.
One of the problems we see in Carver right now is drugs.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it for quite a while. I mean, 2 of my students are dead now. That's a lot for one teacher, to have 2 students that are dead.
One town.
One town.
Yeah, it's a lot.
No, it's more than that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we see. But what we're trying to do is start out slow. The building has been beautifully renovated back to its original outside and inside by Mr. Griffith. And to us, it's just a group of people about the kids. Now, there are a lot of volunteers that have not been contacted yet because it isn't the time for us to start spreading our wings yet.
Okay.
But we have all those names, including yours. For when we need that, we'll have it. So this is just an open house
No, that's great.
for people to see. Yeah, we're having a raffle. Maybe,
YMCA is good.
make a few dollars to pay for the open house. But that's it. But the key is, it is just a youth center
That's awesome. Thank
to
you.
help the youth of Carver.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Dick.
Yep, I
Thank
agree.
you.
All right, well, we remain cautiously optimistic that this will be a very viable outlet for our youth in the town, and it'll make my job a little bit easier, my real job. So, yeah. All right, next up, we have appointments. We're running just a little bit behind. Thank you for your patience, folks. We have the New England Farms public hearing, request for retail packaged storm wine and malt license. Thank you, folks. If you could take the mic, identify yourselves, please.
What's here or over there?
Typically, I think we have them over there, but we face them. Yeah, face them as much as you can for the audience, and so they can get them on the camera and everything. And
Is that good?
yeah, that's good. Again, if you could identify yourselves and
Certainly. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Karen Simeo. I'm with the law firm of McDermott, Quilty, and Miller. I'm here representing New England Farms this evening. We have several members of the team here, but to my right, I'd draw your attention to Mr. Eric Rosenlund, who is the proposed manager of, Mr. Tom Pratt, who is the proposed manager of record on your application. And we're here on the property known as 303 Tremont Street, the former Eagle Gas location. Without belaboring this point, because I know that this build-out has gone through zoning and has been the subject of many very positive town meetings, this is really a complete rehab of this site. The prior building was completely torn down. We have some renderings of what the new building will look like. the nice thing about New England Farms is that you know what you're getting. They're a very reputable operator in the Commonwealth. They have 10, this will be the 10th location that they have. So these renderings are very real. You could go to any one of their locations and see that what they're promising to deliver to the town of Carver is in fact what they do deliver, which is always nice and reassuring for the folks running town. In addition to, obviously, the build-out of a beautiful building, the interior will obviously be completely renovated. We've created several parking spaces, which is obviously very convenient for the folks that come in. But I also know that the team has done a lot of work with the town planner, with Conservation Commission, to do things to make the site really visually, aesthetically look much nicer and to be a significant contribution aesthetically to the town. So that's sort of the background here. The reason I'm here today is because part of the New England Farms plan is to offer beer and wine sales in their format. This is a format that is currently used in East Freetown, Bridgewater, Berkeley is coming up shortly. Again, it's a proven track record of success. They feel very strongly about providing their customers with one-stop shopping. And that includes a myriad of convenience items. And then about anywhere between 5 to 10% of their sales would run to beer and wine. The remaining 90% being the convenience items that are offered. And then obviously separate and distinct from that is the gas portion of the business. I'm sure that I don't need to tell anybody sitting on this board, anybody in the audience, how valuable time is to individuals, families today, whether they're children, whether they're parents that we're dealing with. Time is very valuable. And so more and more we're seeing this trend towards one-stop shopping for the everyday items. I phrase it that way because whenever we go into a town, I like to be very clear that this is not a full-service package store. They are not selling spirits. People who may be having a Super Bowl party are going to continue to frequent the other businesses in town that offer more options, that offer spirits. So this is in the nature of really enhancing business in the town. And obviously a portion of that business from the sales, from the tax on this, comes back to your town, which is always favorable in that regard. The proposed hours of operation of the location generally will be 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. The sales where beer and wine would be available would be consistent with their other locations and the Commonwealth's laws, which would be 8 a.m. Monday to Saturday to 11 p.m. Sunday noon to 11. We're looking at the creation of about 10 jobs at this facility. And again, I did mention that although this would be the 10th location for New England Farms, this would be the 5th location offering beer and wine. So again, there's a lot of experience here. In terms of training, there's extensive training that goes into the staff. Every single person is carded. As Mr. Pratt said, it's like going to a Patriots game or a Red Sox game. Everyone is carded every time. These are people with no record of any violation, notwithstanding the fact that they have multiple stores with exactly the format we're proposing, which is extremely significant. And then in addition to obviously training people and bodies is always important, but there's also camera and security and surveillance that goes into it. So there's approximately 16 cameras and surveillance on site, which is always helpful, not only to monitor, again, we're here for a very specific purpose, which is the malt and wine license, but theft, if there's any crime, we cooperate with the police. You know, this is all part of making them a neighbor and a good business neighbor in this town. And so we hope that the board is amenable to this proposal and certainly look forward to becoming a part of the business community here.
Thank you.
Certainly attractive presentation. I like the design of the building and everything. Any questions by members of the board? We start with Mr. Franny.
What are your hours going to be?
The hours for the store generally will be 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. The sales of malt and wine beverages will be limited. They won't be able to start sales until 8 a.m. on Monday to Saturday, noon on Sundays.
Okay, the building, is the building owned by a separate party or by the parties in interest?
This is separate landlord. This is a landlord-tenant relationship.
Separate from the shareholders of the?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Sarah?
Is your facility in Freetown, is that right off of what, 140? Right there, and how, that's been there a while?
Been there 12 years.
Okay, so I know, I've seen it, and that's a similar building to what you're building here.
Yeah, we actually brought, our newest buildings in Berkeley, which opened
Can
in
you-
December.
Excuse me, can you use the microphone for the folks at home?
Our newest facility is in Berkeley on Route 79, which we opened in December. And this is kind of our new image on New England Farms. So this is a day before we opened. So there's some real shots to show you what it's going to actually look like.
Nice.
Okay,
It's a nice looking building.
very, very good.
Okay, Sarah.
I just didn't know whether you had talked with any of the neighbors down there or had any discussions like that? Anyone, horribly opposed?
I have not talked to anyone.
Throughout the process of the zoning and permitting process, obviously there have been discussions generally with the community. There hasn't been a separate community meeting or anything of that nature. Again, this application is tops 10% of the overall proposal, which is certainly the gas and convenience. And there's been no objection to the rebuilding of this
That was
property.
pre-existing, what was, just copying what was there.
It was
so.
the old Delta Gas,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I know that when you had your public hearings here in town, abutters were notified, so I
Correct.
guess you would have heard.
And as they were for this hearing,
Okay.
consistent with Mass General laws.
Great.
Through you?
Yes, ma'am.
It sounds like you've already gotten most of the approvals from the planning board and the conservation agent, and so I just have two quick questions. Have you talked to the police chief? Has he solidified his, that he feels comfortable with it? And,
Just a point of clarification, the conservation agent doesn't give approval for projects
she
like that.
mentioned she had spoken.
Conservation Commission does.
Oh, I
yeah.
apologize. Sorry.
With respect to the question on the police, I'll let Mr. Higgins, who is one of the named partners in the application, he can address that question.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Mickey Higgins, and I am the owner of the real estate and also part owner of New England Farms. When we did the permitting process through the town, we had, I believe you call it a technical review committee here at the town hall, and the fire chief was there, the police chief was there, the board of health was there. I think a representative from all the various town departments were there, wrote letters, had meetings, face-to-face meetings, everybody reviewed the plans. Those plans kind of all made their way into the site plan package that the planning board
Yep.
eventually approved. So we do have planning board approval. I think the fire department and traffic circulation were much more paramount than the police chief's comments, but we did go through that process. Everybody in town has seen it. We do have planning board approval, we do have conservation commission approval.
Terrific.
We do have all our signs approved at this point. This is kind of our last step at this point.
What is your expected date of opening, if everything goes well?
Depending how tonight goes,
Yep.
we still need to complete our building plans, file for a building permit with the building inspector, and then build it. So my guess is we would probably, at this point, we're a little behind schedule, probably end up building it through the winter, and depending how the weather is, open early spring.
Thank you.
Great.
I also just wanted to, I think Ms. Weston has a copy of the abutter notices. I have extra copies if, okay.
Mr. Pasal, did you have anything you wanted to?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Any, Mr. Hunter, our Director of Economic Planning?
I just, I think everyone's talking about the looks of the building. I think it's terrific, you know, and I've dealt with a lot of developers, and this is a very, very polished team. And I don't know if we have the site, if we can look at the site, I'll be very quick. This is not an easy site to rebuild on for what they want to do, and it was a real partnership between the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, all the department heads, and the developer to make this work the way it is, and to protect the resources around it, protect traffic, and still look like a very well-done building, and I think it's going to be a great asset to the town. I hope you approve it.
Thank you. Jim, as a public hearing, we open this up to members of the audience that would like to make comments on this.
I'm not aware of any printed policies that the board has. It certainly wouldn't hurt, Mr.
No.
Chairman, to do so.
Does anybody in the audience have anything they'd like to comment on this project? Seeing none. Hearing none. Last chance. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve.
very good. I have a motion,
Ellen, second.
and Helen seconded it. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Good luck, folks.
Good luck, folks. Good luck.
What's that?
You're going to abstain? Are you going to abstain?
No.
As a liquor license.
Oh, liquor license.
Good luck. We wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
that'll get mailed in tomorrow.
I can go back to my seat now.
All right, next up is a request for common victual license for bed and breakfast, Maureen Fuller.
She's not here.
She's not here?
She's unable to make it tonight.
All right, she's unable to make it. We can, I thought we did this before and granted her that license.
She's been open before, she maybe closed it.
Yeah, you could-
Is it an annual renewal?
She had discontinued it for 1 year.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to renew it,
Yeah, well, let her know. She can call back and we'll get her on a future agenda, so. All right. Next up is request for appointment to the Business Development Commission, Mr. Brian Abatello. Brian, did I get that pronunciation right?
You did a great job.
Okay.
I mean, here,
You're a diplomat too, aren't you? No, right there at the mic is good. Where's the chairman of the RDA? Where's the top member, the big cheese of the RDA?
It's a BDC.
Business Development Commission, you're right, yeah. Okay, Brian, tell us a little bit of background, your interest, and why you want to join the BDC.
well, student of business myself, really interested in it. So when I found out that there was going to be an opening on that particular committee, I decided, take a shot at it and see what I could do to maybe, contribute to the town and maybe learn a few things too. I thought it would be a great way to get together with some of the other individuals in town and, learn a few things and add some ideas and hopefully bring some business like what we just saw, to the town. That's the main reason. I am a member of the community, been here a short time, took an interest in, another, with the RDA, another board, and thought, why not? Well, contribute a little bit more. So, got a little bit of time on my hands, so I'm giving it to the town, and I gotta be careful that I don't give too much time and have no time for myself, so.
Mr.
Good.
Chairman,
That can happen.
We can't get enough volunteers as it is, so I mean,
I make a motion, we approve.
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further questions, comments?
I was just gonna say, Brian, you're doing going for your bachelor's in business,
Yes, I am,
so, that's perfect.
Yeah.
yeah.
What school are you going to, Brian?
Quincy College now, and then I'll probably go over to Bridgewater State after getting
Good luck.
through there. Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Best of luck.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did we vote?
No.
Not yet.
We have a motion and a second. We don't have any other questions, right? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Can't tell it's my first meeting
Thanks.
back in 6 weeks, right?
Thanks, Brian.
Next up is the Redevelopment Authority. I got you right this time, Will. Crystal Lake Community Garden and Newcomb's Tree Service. Come on down.
How we doing? I'm CJ Gillis, 6 Oak Drive. I'm the chairman of the committee for the Crystal Lake Community Garden. Basically want to thank the board as a whole for their support in this project that we've been doing. We've come out with our mission statement. The Crystal Lake Community Garden's mission is to provide opportunities for Carver residents to garden in a healthy and cooperative setting to further the growth, diversity, and well-being of the community. This is something that we come up with. There's a group of us from the neighborhood. It's going on the property at, I believe it's 0 to 3 Oak Drive. There was supposed to be a representative from Newcomb's. He couldn't make it. We just want to give you an update of where we are. We've gotten our prices for clearing the property. Newcomb came in the lowest with a price of $4,600. $1,800 of that was the labor, and they're donating that to the town for a grand total of $2,800. We'd like to thank the redevelopment authority who gave us that $2,800 to clear the land to get us jump-started in this project. We've been getting questions from other people we're trying to raise money from as to, nothing's happened yet, so I think they want to see something happen. So the redevelopment authority helped us get that boost. Peter Pellegrini from Signs by Design has donated a sign for us.
Good.
For the future site of the Crystal Lake Community Garden. We're currently waiting on answers from Lowe's for a grant of, well, they said anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000. I'm gonna guess it's closer to 5. But we'll take the 50. And we also have plans to apply for other grants and donations from local businesses. And with your blessing, we're looking to start clearing next month.
Oh, there's no cucumbers or tomatoes yet?
Not yet.
Holy smokes. 50,000, you could go out and buy Shaw's for crying. It sounds good.
Motion to approve.
We get a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further questions or comments from the board?
I
or-
think it's a little piece of agriculture coming in our town.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's about time.
nice.
Very good, super. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Good luck, folks. Don't forget. That's right, tomatoes and cucumbers. Next up is the Wade Street residents regarding 0 Wade Street property and a proposed trust. Brian, that would be you, and you have, I see, some capable assistants with you? Come on down. You can. Please introduce yourself for the benefit of the folks at home, so state your name, address, and why you're here. Into the microphone, if you would.
Brian Abatello. I live at 15 Wade Street. I'm here to propose a trust for 0 Wade Street. It's a 6-acre parcel of land that sits adjacent my property.
My name is Greg Iavana. I live on 17 Wade Street. I'm a direct abutter. So,
Thank you. Why don't you explain to everybody out there exactly what this is all about, okay?
Well, the property has been, pretty much set aside as a open space for, I guess, 30 years since the neighborhood was put together. And there was some talk of selling the property to Makepeace at one time and other people, and that has all fallen through, and the property has been, in and out of different departments or different committees. So now we've decided as a group on the street that we would like to take a crack at, either, there was 2 trains of thought that we had. One was to give it to the Conservation Committee, and we felt that would be a great option. And then the other option would be to put it into a trust where we would work in partnership also with the town of Carver and the Board of Selectmen. The first train of thought being giving it to the Conservation Committee would take, let's say, the politics out of it, and we wouldn't have to build any subcommittees or, elect officials or anything like that. And then the second train of thought being the trust, we would have to go through the creation of a trust and then also picking members, working, partnering with you as well. So my thought was, if we went with the first one, why couldn't we partner as well with the committee and get the neighborhood involved, and then have a partnership of government and community, small cleanup crews, what have you, and maybe try it that way. And if that didn't work, then we could, if you didn't approve with that, we could maybe look at the trust a little bit more seriously. So I've been doing all the talking. I'll let Greg do a little bit of talking too.
Say ditto, Greg.
This is your chance for 15 minutes of fame, Greg.
I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Or infamy. There's one or two ways there. I want to open up to the board and see if we have some questions here. Mr. Franny?
I'd prefer, and I had proposed it before, having it in a trust, and it does have to go to town meeting. You did a pretty good job of putting this together. I do disagree with some of the aspects they have on this. I think that down in, on the composition, you have one member will be ex officio. I'd rather have all 5 members to be, equal vote on whatever you're gonna run the committee for. The other thing is you wanted 3 remaining members to be Vaughan Estates members. I'd rather have it be, preferred to be Vaughan Estates members, only because if you can't get enough people out of Vaughan Estates, it's gonna kill the committee. So if the selectmen make the appointments, if there's people from Vaughan Estates, they're gonna get the preferential. But if they're not there, if we can't run around and people won't volunteer, we don't want it to die. And I know that you have here, one of them must be a direct abutter. I don't really agree with that either. But, these are my opinions. We have 4 other members of the board. I want it to be set up similar to what the Council on Aging Board of Trustees, they run that building down there. They have trustees, and, they've run it very effectively over the years. They've gotten appropriations from town for the maintenance of it. You probably could get appropriations either from the town or from the CPA committee or something like that. So that's my view on it. But you did a very good job on this. Between you and I thought town council did this, so.
Thank you.
Maybe you should go to school to be a lawyer instead of a developer.
It's what the world needs, another lawyer.
Oh, my God.
Jack, you all done?
I'm set.
Sarah?
I'm going to recuse myself since you're talking about maybe giving it to conservation.
Through
Dick?
you.
I've gone right back to the get-go on this. When it was being offered, or possibly offered to Makepeace for $19,000. That's a nice piece of land, really. I mean, it's rough, but it's high and dry. And there's a lot of value under it in sand. I mean, if you're talking in terms of my industry, cranberries. But my basic feelings were that the town we ought to keep that open space, or if need be. And I think if you look at your trustee outline, it says in there, this property would stay in its natural state in perpetuity. And I think if you go way back to the beginning of the Vaughan Estates, I think that that was set aside for recreation, for possible neighborhood recreation for the Vaughan Estates. So I think that's what we have to do. Now, I'm just concerned with all the things that you folks will have to do in forming a trust and all. If it was set aside in conservation, it would fall right into that. in its natural state in perpetuity. Now, if it's the type of recreation, walking, trails, those kinds of things would fit in with that in its natural state in perpetuity. And so I thought that going along with, I mean, if you have to develop a committee to run it, and then I thought that we'd be better off if we just said, why don't we ask the Conservation Commission to take it over? And then it would stay in it's a natural state in perpetuity. So that was my feelings.
Helen?
I had a question if we were to go the trust route is, one, what if down the road the trust decided to sell it? Would there be something in here to address that? And then I was just a little curious about number B under 4.9-8, to employ consultants and full or part-time staff to contract for administrative and support goods and services. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I believe that would be if there was something that needed to be cleaned up or done on the property. What we would do is then we'd probably have to go to some other committee and ask for, funds maybe from like the RDA, for instance, or something like that, or come find somebody who we could then contract, and then we'd have to get funds in order to pay for those people to come out and, let's say, put a dumpster on the property, so that way we could get whatever were taken off by whatever committee it was that we put together to do a cleanup or something like that.
With the RDA, you wouldn't have to pay them a full or part-time.
Yeah, right, we'd have to go to them and ask for the funds and then pay some other company to go out and clean up or whatever.
Okay, that's a little bit of a concern if we go forward with this, so we could, work the wording out on this, because it sounds like there's administrative
Can I make another comment?
employment as well, to do administrative duties, so.
Okay, yeah.
Just
I
something
mean,
to-
something we could definitely work out.
Yeah,
As far as the
exactly.
sale, I mean, we could obviously put something in there that, as far as it being sold and not being sold
Okay.
after that.
Mr. Franny?
The reason I wanted it to be under the guise of similar to Council on Aging, because the trust would be a trust of the town, not a trust that would be controlled by anyone outside the town. And it does have provisions in that trust agreement as far as hiring anyone, anything like that. But
Right.
basically, the Board of Selectmen would have the oversight and control of it. You would just pretty much manage the property. I think, this is, like I said, this is very good, but I think we really need to do is, we need to refer it to town council and have them oversee everything to make sure that the interest for the town of Carver is protected, because the land is owned by the town of Carver. We're not turning the stewardship over to your committee. We're just letting you, run it like a recreational area or whatever it might be, so. And I don't think you'd have the ability to go out and sell it under those provisions. So
Right.
that's why we need to,
Right, we were under
need
the
to refer
impression.
this to town council.
Mr. Purcell has something he would like to...
Yeah.
To reinforce Mr. Franny's point and perhaps for additional information for Ms. Maroney, under 4.9.2, Part B, maybe just a short tweak on that. I would suggest to you that, by more than implication, the property couldn't be conveyed. Certainly at any kind of private interest, but you could tweak,
You're right,
you could reinforce that point. I think that's
Within that
I think
section.
that's the hook right there.
okay.
As a resident of Vaughan Estates, I'll leave that to you then.
Or your counsel, or,
No, we should.
No,
I
no,
think
to
we should
to work with these gentlemen maybe
Oh,
and
of
get this
course.
thing tweaked
of
up and
course.
stuff like
Oh, I
that.
see, yeah.
And disassociate myself with it, because I live in that neighborhood over there, so.
I would,
To us three.
Mr. Chairman, I would need to, I'd need to know, the consensus view of the board. Do you want to go the, no, you know
Well,
what?
I'll make a
You don't
mo-
have to decide that just
I
yet.
can make a motion that we want to have town council review it under the auspices of the town administrator, and you can get back to us in the
Okay.
future with
And you
some
can
of our
defer the
concerns
decision
addressed.
of whether you want to pursue a trust once you see a document. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
wanna make
because
that
it doesn't
motion?
even mention a vote
Me.
tonight.
I made the motion.
I
Did
apologize.
you get it? Make a motion that we refer this matter to town council and work in conjunction with the town administrator and the proposers to come back with something that's workable. And I'd suggest that you look at the trust agreement that we have, or whatever the agreement is we have for the Council on Aging Board of Trustees down there that manage the building, so.
Just, you want that seconded before we discuss further?
I'll
I didn't-
second that because I want to ask something as well.
Yeah, I just want to point out that I think it would be easier for everybody to do it with conservation, but whatever way we do it, I support it in terms of keeping it open space, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of the motion, should we emphasize that through the town council to ensure that it's going to be in the best, going into a trust format is in the best interest of the town?
Well, that's
Will
what they
that
do.
be
They're gonna look out
necessary
for our
to
best
add
interest.
that language?
I think through you, Mr. Chairman, I think the exercise that council would go through would assume that you are pursuing the trust route. If when you saw the product and, made comments and things, you decided, you know what, maybe a trust isn't so good.
And
then
they would have.
Make
they've
that
been-
decision then.
They've been our town council for a number of years, so they probably would have the instrument for the Council on Aging Board of
Oh, I have. yeah.
Trustees within their files.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that,
Yeah.
but what we're doing is further vetting, this particular document. It's not you're not making a decision, it seems, tonight on, in absolute terms that we want to do it by trust.
So I don't hear any opposition, Brian, but what I do hear is they want to make sure that the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed, and they're going to vet this a little bit more, okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just-
Affects you guys too as residents over there also, so.
Yeah. Could I just
And that-
clarify? The point of this was never to sell the property. So
Right.
we don't,
No.
we would never do this with the intent of selling this.
Just the opposite. You wanted it in trust, so it could not be.
Absolutely,
And-
absolutely.
And thank
So-
you for initiating this and bringing it forward, because we had discussed doing this before, and we were supposed to put it in town meeting, and somehow it fell by the wayside, so thank you for bringing it up.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, folks. As soon as Mr. Purcell has the answers on that, I'm sure he will be in touch, okay?
Okay.
And we'll rearrange to set this up exactly the way it needs to be done and get it done, okay?
Do you need contact information from us? or
I
anything
think
like
you
that?
can track it down.
Okay, all right.
Especially where you're on two committees.
Yeah,
Shouldn't be hard. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
We need a vote on that.
Thank you.
we got it narrowed down to Wade Street. We know you both live on Wade Street.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
Yes, you do have to take the vote. There was a motion and a second.
Can we,
Yes.
What you're doing
Okay.
is basically tabling this until it's
okay,
vetted.
just making sure.
Yeah.
So you have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's 3-0-2?
So did Mike.
Yeah, so 3-2-1, 3-2-0, 3-0-2, however it works out.
It's
I leave the-
3-0, it's 3-0-2.
Right.
I know, we got it. No worries.
All right, next up, Town Building Study Committee, discussion and possible vote to hire outside consultant to prioritize town building needs. Yes.
I forgot to add an item that we discussed earlier.
Oh,
And I do
no,
appreciate if I could,
I'm sorry, fellas, please hold up one second.
I did
That's,
ask the building study.
it's not Mr. Sinclair's fault, it's mine, because he did approach me before the meeting and asked for this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's well overdue. As the chairman of the redevelopment authority, when Mr. Franny had completed his 5 years, we'd like to recognize Mr. Franny for his, on behalf of the redevelopment authority, I would like to express our sincere appreciation for the 5 years Jack Franny spent as an elected member of the Carver Redevelopment Authority. During his tenure, the Carver Redevelopment Authority sold over 15 properties, of which over $500,000 of the proceeds were given back to the town. He also oversaw the completion of the Buckman's Park project, agreements of the new water connection up in North Carver, and was on the initial phases of the Abishon paint program, all utilities of the CRA's monies. His dedication to this this board will be missed and has been missed. And we just would like to reach out and recognize Jack's efforts. I know he's very busy in what he was doing at the time, but his efforts need to be recognized. And I thank you for the time to do this, Mr. Chair.
Well, I think that's commendable, and I think Mr. Franny deserves a round of applause. Nice job, Jack. That, there was a lot of projects, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, and I know
Well,
you had a good team down there at the IDA to
it wasn't just me, and I thought,
Yeah.
you know, Will and I had so many roundabouts and wrestling matches there, I thought he was getting up to complain again.
This is democracy at its finest. Okay. First thing, before I bring you guys up, I just want to make an announcement for the general public out there and people in the audience that aren't familiar with Mr. James Purcell, our interim town administrator, who is here to keep our feet out of the fire and bail us out until we can get the committee up and running and get a permanent town administrator in. Jim is a retired administrator, many, many, many years in the business, very capable, very able. And just so everybody at home can see that handsome face over there and know who they're going to deal with. All problems go there. All compliments come here. Thank you. All right, come on. Town Building Study Committee. Discussion and possible vote to hire outside consultant to prioritize town building needs. Gentlemen, make sure you state your name and everything for the folks at home.
Dan Ryan, member of the Town Building Study Committee.
Steve Pratt, Town Building Study Committee.
We want to make sure they throw rocks at the right people.
Yeah. Okay. So the Town Building Study Committee has continued to meet throughout the summer. We've been going pretty strong here. And one thing that, if you recall, we came before the Board of Selectmen looking for some documents that would help us for input into the study that we're doing. And one of those documents was the master plan. And so what we found since that request is that the current master plan is outdated and it does need to be updated. If I have it correct, the committee has not met since 2008, if I understand. So given that we're looking to renovate or rebuild or relocate buildings, and part of that would have been in the master plan that we could have used for a guideline, the committee discussed that we should look for possibly an individual or entity that has been involved in town planning and economics and that things like that. And so we discussed that an independent study through a qualified organization would provide a valuable input to the process in absence of not having the updated master plan. So we consulted with Jack Hunter, and Jack's been working with us at several meetings to identify organizations. And in fact, we've met with 2 of those organizations to see what they offer for services. So the reason we're here is we wanted to discuss that with the Selectmen. Obviously, we're an advisory board to the Selectmen, and see if you agree that it would make sense for us to move in this direction and possibly contract with a firm that can bring an outside view or an independent view into the town and take a look at the information that would be useful for moving forward with the recommendations that we would make, but also the report from this entity would also be part of the master plan. It's the piece that we're missing that they would start to work on now and then have that available for when we do the master plan. So we wanted to talk about that. We have some ideas for funding and just wanted to go over the basic concept with you, and we could invite Jack up here too, because he's been involved with us on this pursuit, and answer whatever questions, and then see if the board agrees that we should go forward and look at doing this. I don't know if you want to offer anything.
Steve, you have anything to add? No? That's a first.
Wow.
All right, what I'd like to do is open this up to the board and see if we have any questions, and we'll start the other end. Helen, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
I'm thinking through the request. How outdated is the 2008 master plan? Did it incorporate the?
Well, I think the master plan was from 2001, if I want to
I thought you
say.
said oh.
No.
And the last time the committee.
It's a 2009 master plan. I
Is it
think
a
Jack will be able to
2009?
speak to that. Yep.
Okay, sure.
Well, everyone's right and everyone's wrong. 2001, a comprehensive master plan was completed and adopted by the town. Starting at about 2007, maybe 8, the planning board appointed a subcommittee to start looking at revising that master plan, and they did about 3 sections plus the open space plan we incorporated. So, you know, it was revised, about half of the master plan was revised in 2008 and not been touched since. And
Is there a reason why, Jack?
money, time, enthusiasm,
They're not all volunteers?
they were all volunteers. And they were, you know.
Do we still have a committee?
Pardon me?
Do we still have a committee?
I don't think the planning board ever technically dissolved it. So technically it may still be active. I know I've had discussions with the Buildings Study Committee, I'm gonna get that right, about possibly asking town meeting to help out to finish it and get a solid, comprehensive
Well, here we are,
master plan.
2013. I think we need to put it in gear.
And what the committee asked me to do is to try to find an agency that does what they're looking for, like a peer study, an independent group to test their assumptions, everyone's assumptions, everyone's financial models, everyone's locations, and does it make sense? And if it doesn't, what does? And I had contacted 4 agencies, and then the Center for Economic Development at UMass Amherst and the Collins Center were the 2 that responded.
Yeah, if I could, just.
Sure,
one,
go ahead, Steve. I know we couldn't keep you down, Steve.
No, that's all right. When I started doing the research on the master plan committee, you know, I found the initial minutes that created it in January 2008, and there were no minutes or agendas after that. So when I asked Jean, you know, from looking at the town report, you know, whether or not there were any subsequent submissions by the committee to the town, there were none. And I believe the last notation was probably in 2009 or 2010 of a fact of a committee. In fact, I think when Jack gave us the revisions that were, I think they were from either end of '09 or '10, somewhere around that time frame. So really nothing has been done in the last few years, and you know, here we have been talking about buildings for the last few years, and more like the last 10 or so. So we felt it was important to, you know, take all the work that's been done by the various committees and put that up to, you know, 2013. You know, say let's revisit it 2013, and you know, kind of, you see if the pieces that we had in place are still going to fit together. You know, and so that's really what was behind, you know, sort of this you know, thing, because we didn't want to do anything that was inconsistent with what the town had, you know, put forward as a master plan.
Right. I guess one of the questions that I have is, that's kind of like why we invented you guys, to fulfill that role. So what do you think that the consultant can do better or whatever
Well, you can start, then I'll.
than the experts on the committee now?
Well, for one thing, remove the politics.
I'm shocked. Is politics involved in it?
Well, you know, yes. And, you know, we want to, you know, we have our ideas. I mean, we have 4,
Sure.
you know, old guys working on this committee. And,
Roger, tell them to speak for themselves, will you?
and so we have lots of ideas,
Yep.
and they're not all old. So, you know, it's you know, but it removes some of that. And
Right.
I think that's important, you know, for the process. You know, I think we all don't want to revisit, you know, what's been going on for the last half a dozen
It might take a lot of the acrimony that's existed over the past several years out of the picture altogether, and, you know, somebody comes in with a objective view as opposed to subjective partisan views, you know what I mean? So you might be right in that accord.
And the other part of it too is that, you know, while we've looked at all the buildings, we've made a recommendation for police, fire, school, we all know that has to be done. And we've provided some plans. 2 years ago, we had some ideas for how to fund those buildings. But we're not experts, we're not town planners. You know, we come up with some great ideas, some of which have already happened, and it would be good to bring somebody in that has that expertise, that does that in cities and towns, and has been through maybe some of the pitfalls and can take a look at what Carver has today and where we're trying to go, and probably bring that outside perspective in, and then that will make it stronger. So when it goes back, when we give that back to the board as a report and put that into the master plan, we now have something viable to work for. That's an independent view of things, as Steve said.
Right. And maybe more acceptable by everybody.
I just want to say, there's no disrespect to Jack at all. I mean, Jack's straight
No.
out. It's
No.
Jack straight out. I mean, and he's been involved in so many, I mean, if I see his name on another letterhead of another committee, you know, it's.
Which Jack?
This Jack here. I mean, he's on every committee in town, I think.
What's his name?
So, you know, it's really of trying to, again, look at it from somebody outside in.
I think you might have something there. Helen, you already asked a question. Dick, you're next.
I was, all right.
You get
Wow, was I just shut off or what? Was that obvious? One question.
You want to go?
No, go ahead, Dick.
Okay, I am concerned because,
Were you Mr. Ward? I'm only kidding.
I worry about, you know, we have a little bit of political factions because you have people that want to move forward with the fire station, people that want police, and then school. And so I wouldn't want to see them batting heads. So in a sense, a sensible plan with a consultant like this, and it's probably due for another review or putting things together that you put together anyway. So I would be in favor of seeing where that would go and how it would work.
Okay.
Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, I would tend to agree with Dick, too, because the last thing you want is school people and, you know, and firefighters and police officers not supporting one another in their various projects. So if we have some more impartial party looking at it, it's probably a smart thing to do.
Jack?
When you look at our debt that we have very little debt in this town, but you look at other cities in town, they have a lot of debt. And what they do is they make sure that every single budget year, they're providing money on that. What we're doing is saving our money. So maybe someone coming in will give us a different viewpoint, a different strategy for funding these things. And it's not gonna happen overnight, it's gonna happen gradually. But we can't just wait for the big debt thing to come along once every 10 years or something. I think we need to have a strategy to fund our infrastructure needs every single year. And we need to build it into our budget. And I think a consultant like you're recommending will come along with that. And I think everyone has to embrace it.
Two things. How long will it take for the consultant to do the audit, and how much will it take?
Okay, so there's a little bit to that. So there's two groups that we looked at, and the amount of money is completely different, and the time frame is completely different. So we're probably going to end up settling in on the one that's less expensive and shorter time frame. Although we want to make sure we understand you get what you pay for.
Yep.
So that's part of that. So what we've seen is that one group is not available to start until the spring, and they're looking at approximately $33,000 of a year-long study. That might be a lot more than what we're kind of looking for here. The other group is just under 10,000. They could start almost immediately, and they think they would be done around January of this year. That seems to be more reasonable, so that's probably the direction we're going to go. And as long as we understand the difference in what we're getting for the money, that's what we wanted to understand.
Well, we have to do a scope of services, so
Exactly.
we will know if they're going to meet our requirements up front. So
Right. So we've met with both organizations. They're both good.
Yep.
And they both, you know, one of them you're actually using, the Collins Center.
Collins Center, right.
Collins Center you're actually using, and that's the one we're also looking at, too.
Okay, for the
as a
less than
possibility.
10,000,
Yes.
$9,999.
97.
It's comparing, it's UMass Amherst.
Now, I understand Jack Hunter has offered to take this money out of his wallet and pay for this.
Yeah, how did you know that? Wow, that's pretty good.
Since
all the committees pay.
We're looking
Yeah,
at,
right.
we're looking at squeezing the RDA for this money?
I'll let Dan and Will talk about that. I'm not touching that one.
No
I was
boxing-
just gonna.
no boxing
I was-
gloves
I
tonight.
was just gonna explain the difference.
Okay.
And it's nothing to do with that one's better than the other or quicker.
Okay.
It's that the Center for Economic Development out of UMass Amherst is run by Dr. John Mullen. He's been here before. He's very
Right.
well revered in over the country, over the world actually, as a planner. But he uses a lot of grad students, and that's the time it takes and the more money it takes. And I think they're making the right decision on the Collins Center. It's more precise, it gets to it. They bring in retired professionals. We met with a treasurer, former treasurer of North Andover, who has tons of experience. And they're also looking at people that used to, retirees that used to be on the school building MSBA. So they're gonna bring in retired experts to bounce this stuff off, and I think that's the direction I would, I left before.
Do we
they
have to put it out to
discussed
bid though, Jack, since it's over
that.
$5
No,
grand?
neither have to go out to bid, they're exempt from procurement.
Okay. Beautiful.
So
like that.
if the selectmen support this, then what we were saying is we would probably seek funds. We were going to plan to go before the redevelopment authority and just see if they would support this. And if you want to talk to, we haven't met with them yet, but we needed to ask you
I'll
first
talk to
for-
Will privately.
Okay.
We'll take care of this. Hey, if we can grow vegetables, we can build schools and fire and police stations, right? Right? Cover the whole gamut. All right, Helen, if you had another question, now's the time.
It's too late.
It's too late.
No, it was asked. You asked.
Okay. Well, I kind of get the feeling that all of the members of the board are pretty much unified in supporting this.
Well, why wouldn't we? We don't have to
Yeah.
pay for anything. The RDA's gonna do it.
I'll make
All
a
that money will
motion
help you
to.
raise?
I have a motion to approve this
I'll second that
and
motion.
a second. Do we have any further questions,
Well,
comments,
I mean,
concerns?
We're not gonna be funding it.
Who?
Are we gonna, is the town gonna be funding this, or?
Just
Well,
explain.
the RDA is part of the town. I mean, you know, they're the ones with the deep pockets.
We're just
It's
giving
up-
them
it's
the
up to you.
blessing to
We're giving
move
them the
forward.
blessing to move forward,
Okay.
and then we'll work out the fine print. Turning you on, you said? So, we have a motion and a second. No further questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor of supporting that article, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Recused?
I said aye.
Abstain? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on quickly.
All right. You
This
wanna-
may be a little bit more of a
Involved.
contentious issue because there is schools, police, and fire, but
Right.
the Town Building Study Committee, discussion and possible vote for a special town meeting article on police and fire stations. And we have yet to even settle on whether we're having a fall special town
Correct.
meeting, which we
Correct.
typically do.
Okay.
But I haven't had a chance to talk to our executive director and get his sage advice on what we should do. So neither has anybody else on the board that I know of. So, but, no, please tell us what your proposal is.
Okay, so given, we know that in order to plan a special town meeting, you have to start, and it
Yes.
takes a while, and, you know, there's deadlines and timeframes. So we needed to at least come before you to start thinking about that process. So as you recall, we were tasked by the Board of Selectmen to look at all the buildings in town, and we did that. And prior to, you know, a couple of years ago, we put together a plan that met or that looked at the police, the fire, and the school. And so, in our eyes, we're looking at all the buildings together. It's always been that way. I've recently been around the library. I've been over to the high school. I know our buildings we need that plan to continue to move forward and continue to resolve the maintenance issues. So in our eyes as a committee, everything's together. And as you recall, the plan, the ideas that we had brought before kind of treated them as independent ways of funding those projects.
Right.
So two important points to that is had we been able to move forward with the school back, you know, 2 years ago when we were looking at the options, we would have still been here today because we had identified an independent way to fund the police and fire buildings as well as the maintenance of the other buildings. So we would have still been here. asking for this request, even if we had started the school project. And then the other point is that we did start the school project again. You know, we're on that road again. It's been a long road, as everybody knows, and it continues to be a very long road, but we're back on it again. And it's going to take us some time to get down that road and get everything to happen. And as you know how difficult that is, to do that, you know, we have to still get through the MSBA process. We still have to get back to the voters for how we're going to fund this thing. It's, you know, the magnitude of this project requires that we're going to have to go back to the voters and look at a tax increase. There's no way around it right now unless somebody donates a large sum of money to the town of Carver.
Where's Mr. Hunter? Did he leave?
I keep playing the lottery, I'm hoping.
Isn't there some time sensitivity to this right now, Dan, because of the wraparound funds?
Yes.
That will become available, and also the fact that we created the Building Stabilization Committee?
Correct.
Two avenues that we're looking at to fund these, or mechanisms we're looking at to fund that.
Correct. So in addressing these two independently real quick, and I know we need to dialogue about this more as we move forward towards a special town meeting. However, again, just to set the starting of the planning process, we had to talk about it briefly tonight. So we did, one of the recommendations of the Town Building Study Committee was to establish a capital building stabilization fund. That was a great mechanism. It got started. People, you know, town citizens backed that. So the original concept was it was established for the police and fire building projects as well as future infrastructure needs, taking care of eventually the library, the high school, and the other buildings. It was based on allocating or carving out personal property new growth funds each year. And so fortunately, after the last 2 years, we've now set a base of $400,000, which means that each year now that's not in the budget, so that $400,000 is committed to going into the Capital Building Stabilization Fund. And again, that will continue to grow as we get personal property new growth. So what the good news is we started that 2 years ago, and it's actually gotten to the point where we can start talking about the police and fire buildings because we've gotten there. And as you just mentioned, that coupled with the wraparound concept, which has a time element around it because it's going to, you know, we're going to be paying off the town hall and library bonds pretty soon. It's 2017, and you know, we won't be able to use that anymore. It might take us that long to get the school project going again. So basically, we're here. We've made a plan to do that, and you know, the town committed to it. They started putting the funds into that, into the stabilization fund. They started allocating the funds for that, and we're at the point now where we can, by the time we get to the fall, that coupled with the wraparound would allow us to start. So moving on to the school for a minute. So 2 years ago, we talked about a couple of key points with the school. So one is when we met with bond counsel, one of the things that they reiterated over and over again is the, you know, the dedicated revenue stream. So that was the buzzword they used over and over again. So the difference here with the Capital Building Stabilization Fund, as you understand, is that we do have to go back to every town meeting. We need a 2/3 vote to put money in, take money out. And so when we met with bond counsel, they said, no, guys, that won't work for the magnitude you're talking with the school project. You need a dedicated revenue stream to minimize the risk to the investors, which would minimize interest and possible even bond insurance in case town meeting decided particular year not to do that. So they weren't in favor of that mechanism 2 years ago. That's what kind of shot down what we call Plan B, I think, back then when we were trying to do this. So that's one point to keep in mind. The dedicated revenue stream is independent of what we're doing with the Capital Building Stabilization Fund. We also require the whole MSBA process, as I just mentioned. They're now delayed till November, so they're not even starting to look at any applicants until November now. And that's when they're going to pick the process back up again. And as you remember, that's a long road to get through that process. We do, because of the magnitude of the building, as I mentioned, we're going to have to look at, you know, going back to the taxpayers and seeing, you know, if they're going to approve this project again when we get to the end again. That's what it comes back down to. We are looking at a possibility of if the town could apply for the state's qualified bond program. So what this is that if we were able to do this with the state, then the state's bond rating would apply, which would mean it would be a better savings to the town in the interest, and it's a lower risk to the investors, and it would satisfy the dedicated revenue stream. Still means the town has to come up with the money, but what it does mean is it's an automatic revenue stream that goes to pay off the bond of the school. And so again, the projects are being treated in parallel. They're two separate funding sources, and from the work we did to establish the Capital Building Stabilization Fund, we've arrived at the point where we can actually start thinking about the first building that needs to go. And so that's why we felt we should start the dialogue about the special town meeting and then continue to work to get whatever information the board and the town requires to make that decision.
Question though, if we were to go ahead with the police fire station at a special town meeting in the fall, isn't that one of the items that we're hiring the consultants to come in and take a look at though? To prioritize our building projects, we're actually preempting them.
It's not to prioritize the building projects. It's more to take a look at the land use. And in some respect, too, I was part of the library project. And when we bought the land, the Roby property, we actually put aside a spot of land for the police department. We put that there. Right. That was part of the plan back then. So does that still make sense? And I think the police department's a ways off to make that decision. They wouldn't be able to go right away, even if we authorized to get started. The fire department does have their own property, in a sense. They have a location. Now, this group, as I said, if we approve the study to go forward, they were going to plan on starting in September, and they'd be done around December timeframe, but that might be a little bit too late. But one of the things they might be able to do is give us some input prior to town meeting, if that's what the board was asking for. If we had a special town meeting, say November timeframe, we probably could get something from them to provide to see if it still does make sense for what we're trying to do. Plus, even if you get to November town meeting and you authorize to move forward, we wouldn't be borrowing the money until the whole committee got together and they started down that path. And I think the timing would probably work out fine to answer those questions. But it's also partly looking at the school project too. There's a lot of issues with the site that it's on that get overlooked, like parking and safety and things like that. And so it's taking a look at what we've done, what the town's done to date for the studies. The school's put a tremendous effort into looking at all kinds of options for how to solve that problem. So we're not going to throw that work away. That's all going to be looked at. However, and that was one of the things Jack Hunter briefly said, is that one of our requirements of this group is that they find somebody that's worked very closely with the MSBA to help the town. See, when you go to the MSB, you're external and you're subject to all their rules and regulations, and you can't even ask questions, as you guys have seen before. It's hard to ask questions and understand what we can do as a town, what our options are. So one of the ideas of bringing the organization in too is if they could provide some level of expertise with somebody who's worked with the MSBA, we might be able to help to answer some of those questions too. What makes sense for the town of Carver? What's the best thing for us to do? But so double answer to that is, yeah, a lot of this was to look at the land use and see what made sense. I think in the case of the fire department, they should look at that. But I think we also have a pretty good plan with, moving them to the site that's there too, and we could ask them that right away to address that to start.
Questions by the board? Jack?
I served on the Police and Fire Building Study Committee. And we pretty much determined that we wanted to move the fire department over there and redo the police department. But for both of them, for the cash flow, for the debt service, is about $600,000 or $700,000 apiece. That was back in 2007. You have a dedicated revenue stream right now of $400,000. If you're talking about putting both projects up there, it's going to be very difficult. And also in terms of the wraparound, we had talked about using the wraparound for building the school.
Correct.
So I would think that we would need to talk to the schools and see if they're not interested in that. if you take that, I don't know what the wraparound amount is, at
It's over
200,000,
two,
300,000?
it's over 200, 270
And
right now.
combined it with the 400,000, you'd probably be able to build the fire station right now.
Perfect.
But you wouldn't be able to build the police station. I don't think you
Correct.
should try and go forward with the two of them.
Well-
I think your qualified bond program, I think what you really need to explain a little bit further is, you know, under the qualified bond program, I don't know if the state's bond rating is higher than ours or lower than ours, but they'll advance you the money, and if you don't have the money in your general fund, they're gonna take it off your cherry sheet.
Correct.
And that could really mess up all our budgets if you're not anticipating that being taken off. You
So-
really have to plan.
So I have
My
to address,
suggestion would be, put the fire station on, talk to the school committee, see if they're not interested in the wraparound, and we can probably build that fire station under the levee.
all right, so can I address all 3 points, hopefully real quick here? So, yes, we do have the money to start the fire station, because if you were to use the 400 plus the 270, you just answered that question about 6, so that covers that.
If you can, if the
Right.
school department isn't interested
The
in
thing with the wraparound is, as you know, it's ticking away each year.
That's
So
right.
if we don't start the school project for 3 or 4 years from now, what are we, 2013, 14, 15? By the time, all right, so we've already ticked away and lost that money. They would only benefit 2 years out of that money, perhaps. So the fire department would benefit 4 years out of that money. So it seems to make fiscal sense. And it's not up to them. It's really up to the board here to decide on this mechanism. We're presenting information to you, and you'd have to decide, yeah, this makes sense to either apply to one or both, one of the projects or the other project. But in our analysis, it seems that if we can get the money now and make use of that wraparound fund, it would be better served to start with that immediately.
Well, I disagree with you. I think
Okay, that's
we
fine.
all have to talk together. We have to all embrace these projects.
It's just the years involved with the school, it seemed like it was gonna diminish pretty quickly and drop down. And as far as the police and fire, sure, you could separate them, but what we felt is that if you go for the authorization now, then the fire station's gonna take a couple of years. And then, so you're making an authorization to borrow, that's all you're really doing. The fire's gonna take a couple of years to establish and move from that site. And then by that time, that capital building stabilization fund should have gotten back up to the point in the plan where it could then start to move towards the police. You wouldn't have to go back for another vote. But you could do one and not the other. It just seemed to make sense that if you're just authorizing the borrow with fiscal sense, of course, with the management, that you're going to start the one project and 2 years later you'll have enough money to start the other one. We can put that information together to show people how that will grow and how that will cover both projects.
I just didn't want to have people that are proponents of the school be pitted against the rest of the town for doing this, because you could kill both projects.
Right.
It's almost a sure thing if you can talk to the schools and find out they're not interested in the wraparound, and be willing to let that go, and we have the 400,000, we can do the fire station now and leave the police station, but
Sure,
that's
we
the
can
point
do
of view.
that.
Sarah, did you have any?
Yes, I did, thank you. So, thank you all for being here. One of the things that troubles me is that no matter what subject we're talking about up here, there are obviously going to be people who have no clue what we're talking about, because, we use acronyms and we use all these different phrases because we know what we're talking about. And so I know that there's this very cool feature on the website where when you post your agendas or your minutes, you can also post auxiliary files
Okay.
and all the information that you have. So, your description of the wraparound, so people out there aren't saying, what is he talking about? Because they weren't here 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. So any of your financials, anything like that, I think it's always a really good idea. And there's also a public folder spot too. I think that is meant primarily for times like this, when we're having a meeting, you have the documents, and people at home can go on the website and look at exactly what we're looking at, which you don't have any documents for us right now, but if you
Okay.
did.
Sure.
So that, I think, would be a really great way to get the information out there. I've forgotten a lot of, the numbers, and the numbers may have changed, I don't know. So one other question that I had for you was, have you talked with Clark Rowell and Bond Counsel since that last, whenever it was, 2 years ago, about the situation now?
We haven't yet got involved,
Well, I did have a conversation with Clark in January of this year before we get back together again, because one of the questions that, came up 2 years ago, which we never fully vetted, was the whole underride question and the whole dedicated revenue question, because, and Jim, correct me if misstate this anyway, but the theory that there's a dedicated revenue source from a debt exclusion is kind of a misnomer. Technically, it just it allows the town to increase the tax levy.
Temporarily, yeah.
Temporarily for 30 years, 20 years, whatever the life of the bond is. And so, a town, in theory, could use the money for anything. They don't necessarily have to pay it for debt service, but we do. And we have for 30 years. And Clark knows of any town that hasn't, done that.
Right.
But theoretically, we could. If we were running short on cash that month, we could just say we're not going to pay the bond, and that would cause the municipal bond market to have headaches.
Yeah, and
so
we probably never get another bond again
right.
either.
So the idea that it's dedicated is in truth part truth and in part truth not. And
Well, it is dedicated if that's what town meeting votes.
if that's what
they
town
say
meeting,
that's
and
what
the
they're
voters,
voting.
and the voters, and that's
Correct.
what's more important. In
And
their mind,
they
it's
are also
dedicated,
voters,
right?
correct.
So we recognize that the school, we were all ready to wrap around with the school bond and go with that 2 years ago, and we when looking at the current state of the school project, we didn't think that there was going to be anything be put in front of the voters at least till late next spring at the earliest. And we don't know what the MSBA is going to do. I mean, the feasibility study is from 2006. It projected a town population of 18,000 people by 2013. We've got a little more than 11. It projected a student population in the PK through 5 of 1,200. We have, a little more than 800 full-time students. So, are they going to make us do another feasibility study? I don't know. Do we, we've had a school project that started out at $24 million, based on the study by King Scott, and then it went up to 34 million, and then it went up to 40, and then the schematic told us it was 45.
Right.
I don't know which one we're going to go with, and so, to me, yes, we should ask the school, if they want to do the referendum, but the question is, when is that even going to be put to the voters? And we could be theoretically now, ready to it, because we're still going to have to go to the voters.
Well, and the longer you wait, the more it's not going to go down. I mean, it's
Well, clearly.
the last time we checked, as you say, it was 45 million, and we were being offered a reimbursement for some of that. Now, the problem is, I don't even know why we're even thinking about using the wraparound for the school. It's just silly. I mean, it's not enough in there, so. The other thing, you talked about the qualified bond program, not having been the treasurer. I don't really know a lot about that, so maybe that's something you could also post up on the website.
Sure.
Just whatever information you have.
We can post it.
And, okay, I guess that's what I have. But I understand what you're saying, Steve, but I disagree. I think that going for a debt exclusion is a dedicated revenue stream. That is the way lending institutions see it. And again, if the voters vote, it has to be used for a school or for whatever, that's what we have to use it for. So that's pretty dedicated.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, in theory, though, you could do something different. And
Yeah,
it
but
would not
we're
be
dealing
good
with
practice. It would not
reality.
be good practice, and nobody would be sitting there if they did it 1 year, then next.
That's correct,
So-
yeah.
Moving along. Dick, you have a question?
Yeah. I went to one of the meetings of the Building Study Committee, and I listened to them talk, and you kind of indicated that you thought it might be a political advantage to go forward with the police and fire station, or police or fire.
Mhm.
What was your rationale then on that?
I don't know what.
Paul mentioned that, or Roger.
Roger wants to.
No, what we felt was that, has already been stated here, financially, we're ready to go ahead with the project under levy, the fire project. We felt that doing that would lend some momentum to the other projects in town. That's the political aspect, but I don't think it's a political aspect.
Yes.
Right, but the momentum we felt would be critical for the school and the police station. That, I believe that's what you're referring to, Dick.
Yeah, I remember that because I kind of thought it might be a good idea. But I've thought a lot about it. I'm very concerned that we don't include the school committee into this discussion more, because it's very important to see where, I mean, we have a letter of interest to the MSBA, and now they're saying that the MSBA isn't going to take any action until November. And I'm looking at you folks with a consulting firm, and their results could be coming in the end of December. And I'm thinking maybe we should be trying to get the results of that and include the school committee more, so we can get a definitive plan and dates and things so that people understand what we can move towards.
I think the committee is feeling that these buildings have been in sore need of something for so long now, and the town has waited.
Don't.
And when do you stop waiting, and when do you take action?
Yeah, but
I
you
think
just
that's
went,
what it is.
we're going to a consulting firm to oversee or overlook
Well-
or review everything so that we got a better picture at this
I think
point.
the consulting firm was less critical for the fire department. And actually, I think is more critical for the fire department because, I mean, the fire chief's here if you want to ask him, but, you know, they've been having some serious problems over there. And so, you know, I think what Roger's saying makes sense too. Let's get going on something. Let's get started. You know, the group that comes in to study the land use, sure, we can make it, the first thing they do is look at the police and fire and have a deadline that's done before special town meeting. We can definitely do that, but, you know, if we wait till the fall, or we wait till December, then we have to set another special town meeting. Again, we just keep pushing this thing and pushing this thing, and I think people are starting to feel, let's get going on something. It'll be good for the town. We have the funds. We've actually put the funding in place. It's not a matter of money anymore. You know, that's gone. That issue's
that
off the
one
table.
project, yeah.
Within the levy limit, we can now start the fire department. It's not a matter of money now. Now it's getting into, you know, what's taking us? Why are we waiting on this?
All right. We understand that. Jim, let me have Ellen go, and then I was going to ask you to
As it's privileged.
give us your thoughts on it, too.
Dan and Steve, I think what you're saying, because I want to make sure I understand, that going to special town meeting is just going to give you, if we vote yes, the authority to borrow. And you are going to make it a contingency with this consultant that you're not going to start any work until this consultant company gives us an initial plan. Because my only concern is that the fire department has a lot of buildings within this town, and what happens if the consultant that we're paying for comes back and disagrees with the layout that we are currently pursuing?
I mean, one of the things that's got to come out of this, and Craig, if you're still here, is, you know, we got to put a, you know, fire police station committee back together again. I mean, they haven't met in this many years? 5 years. So, I mean, so even probably at town meeting, you're probably doing two things. You're probably, you know, seeing if you can do the authorize the borrow, but putting a committee back together again and, you know, dusting off presentations and, you know, things like that, and revisiting, you know, a lot of the work that was done, you know, by then. But, you know, I think to Dan's point, you know, we put this process in place 2 years ago, you know, and it's parallel with the school, and we would have had the same conversation had we started the school 2 years ago, because we set aside the money. We did, and I think the real message is, the political part of it, Dick, is that we planned something, we actually did what we said we were going to do, and now it's time to execute, to actually follow through with what we said we were going to do 2 years ago. And I think that's the positive nature of it.
Can I jump, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman? Because it's,
Jump right in.
it relates to Ms. Maroney's question. A town meeting would authorize, with an affirmative vote at town meeting, that authorizes the Board of Selectmen to borrow on behalf of the town. Having authorization and actually issuing debt, you know, one is an extension of the other, but it's the Board of Selectmen that authorizes the issuance of the debt.
So
You
you'd have to
can't
come
do
back.
that without an underlying town meeting authorization, but it's the Board of Selectmen, not a building study committee or anyone else that, that can actually issue it.
So, once, if special town meeting said yes to authorizing the borrowing, then the building study committee would have to come back to the Board of Selectmen, and if we see that the consultant hadn't finished its work or addressed, then we can just say no at that point.
There are on the town's balance sheet, I would bet you now, if you looked at the town's balance sheet, that there's authorized but unissued debt
Yeah.
going back many years. Jack, I don't know if you've cleaned that up in
We did, yeah.
recent years. Yeah, you
Town
cleaned it up.
accountant and myself.
Sometimes you'll authorize $1 million for goodness knows what. The project cost comes in less, you actually issue $900,000.
Right.
And you're still carrying that 100,000 as as a hit on your balance sheet until you go back to town meeting and do that. But in any case, you can manipulate, time.
Okay.
I don't know if Ms. Maroney is done with her questioning, but
Were you answered?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Mr. Chair, could I just mention one more thing? Personally, I'm just not really comfortable deciding we're going to have a town meeting before this consultant has done anything. I mean, if you could, we just authorized the consultant. You're going to use the outfit that goes the quickest. If we could get them to look at whatever seems the highest priority right now and get back to us on that. I mean, I just don't, we're just sort of operating blind.
But I
We
think
we
what
have
was-
had special town meetings in like February too. I mean,
But I think what was just stated is perfect. You don't take any action
Right.
until
Right.
you can go to town meeting and town meeting can authorize, and then it's in your hands to wait till the study's complete. You don't have, you don't have to wait for the study then to go to town meeting. You can do things in parallel.
But why would the town meeting in November authorize something if it turns out in January, the consultant says it's precisely the opposite of what you want to do? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Now, maybe they'll come back and say exactly what you think they're going to say, but we don't know that, so.
And so what I had stated earlier is that if we do contract with them and they start in September, then there's a lot of work for them to do to look at everything. The first order of business is to tell them we have a deadline for special town meeting. They have to have their recommendation for that piece of it done. And I don't think that's going to be a lot. I mean, they may look over there and say, yeah, you guys are right. That's the right thing to do.
Right.
We may be making a mountain out of a molehill.
to your
It's
point, Dan,
more-
we have the money for
We do.
one project.
We do.
But it's more than just the location, Dan. I mean, it says building needs.
Mhm.
So it's not just, is that the right place to put it, right? That's what the consultant is looking for.
Sarah, you're right. You're right. It's looking at the whole package. It really is. But I think we all can stand here with a straight face and say, we need a new school, we need a new police station, and we need a new central fire station. I don't think there's anyone here who says we don't need. So that's easy to say that we have those needs. The priority and is really, we should do them all at once. But that's not financially possible.
You're asking the consultant to prioritize the needs.
No,
That's what it says on the agenda.
Well, it's more of a priority as far as placement, it's more of a priority, but we know that the central station already has an existing lot. And we know that based on the plan that was put together, that the police station was gonna go in the footprint where the fire station was. So unless the fire station is the first piece of the chess game to move, then nothing happens. And so we feel confident that, they're gonna come back and say, yes, it's a Route 58, Main Street, presence, that's where you wanna put your fire station. Whether it's, we could say, let's do the police first and move them somewhere, and then, renovate there for the fire station. But you're talking about there versus there, which has got more land, for any future expansion of the fire station. And I think it's been vetted long enough. Where we've looked at the different properties, I think the issue is we don't have a master plan. We want to just make sure that someone else is coming in and removing some of that politics to it. I don't think the fire station location falls under the same politics as some of the other needs that we have. And that's, to me, is why I'm confident that if we just go to the special town meeting and start the process rolling, that we'll be able to dovetail whatever the report is, so that the other chess pieces can start moving.
All right, listen, we could go on and on about this. I think we've covered most of the bases. We know what the issues are. We know that we need to get moving on something. I know that Mr. Purcell is working on some other issues that may result in calling for a special town meeting sometime in the fall. We have some time now between the time that we're meeting tonight, you get the consultants in, and we start the roll on this thing. In the meantime, he's gonna be looking at the items that, the other items that could be involved in a special town meeting.
I think we should make a motion on it tonight, because, again, my opinion is after clear clarification, we would be the stopgap again. This is just logistics, in my opinion, on projects that we have.
This is a motion for a special town meeting,
Well, right, because it's part of the process.
and I was gonna wait for Mr. Purcell to put together the other items and then tell us when we should move forward with this. That's why I was,
Okay.
In the meantime, I'd like to hear from the school department as far as that wraparound.
That was,
I think
that was
it's
gonna
only
be my
fair to
point,
them.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman. We're a town with meager resources and competing needs.
Right.
And it is, after all, a democracy, and there's a very simple rule: the world belongs to those who show up. And right now, there may be suspicion in some quarters that if this project moves forward, then our chances of getting a school are
Yes.
done. And so
Yep.
I think a dialogue, much like we had tonight, explaining, the sequencing and, where something is slotted at MSBA. I think you gotta get to the school, committee sooner rather than later to allay, any suspicion or fears that their particular project might be compromised by the town going ahead.
And
You may
maybe-
end up
Right.
having an ally,
right.
instead of a combatant showing up at town meeting, shooting this down, and then,
Do we think we would be ready by the next meeting to discuss definitively a special town meeting, or?
well, I understand, I've been told that a fall town meeting is a customary, thing here, not a.
It has been for the last couple of years, so.
Just the last
And
couple
you
of
want to be
years,
able to
though.
you want to be able to set your tax rate.
Yep.
You'll probably need a special town meeting to reconcile the differences between estimated and actual revenues and things like that. So I think you could probably count on
Count on it.
some kind of a recommendation for a special town meeting.
Let me make one more comment. Dan, you said that probably you're hoping to use this town meeting, special town meeting, as a deadline for the consulting firm.
Well,
So maybe
for the
they could
piece,
come in with their report,
Yeah,
so that
for-
we had an idea of what they're saying when we go to that town meeting.
we could have them have a draft ready, but it was primarily focused on looking at the location, I mean, in the starting of the
The
police and
school
fire
is
projects.
really important in this whole,
Oh, we know that, and that was also part of this too.
okay.
If we move forward on the police and fire, then we focus 100% on the school, which we're already focusing on. I mean, the schools, we work with the departments and the building committee and the superintendent. We've been working with them for years on this, and
More.
right. So, and we continue to work with them too, to make sure that the success of the school, we all know we've got to solve that problem as a town. It's just a matter of, it's going to take a while because we're back on that road again through the MSBA process and then through the having to go to, the voters for the money that's going to be needed to do this.
I've picked up a little bit of drumbeat, not from the school administration or the school committee, but I've picked up a little bit of a drumbeat that suggests, you ought to go talk to the school committee and the school administration on this so that things don't get out of hand.
And we
Like-
can schedule a joint meeting, bring everybody in.
I was just
That's
gonna
a
say, I'd
great
like to
idea.
table this and have the school committee come in at the next
Yep.
meeting and be part of this discussion.
But I think you guys are on track. You're
Okay.
pushing,
I'll
and
second that.
Very much.
get a motion in a second to table this until the next meeting and bring the school committee in. Any further comments, questions, recommendations, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for all your work. We
Thank
do
you.
know
You're
what
doing
you're
a super
doing.
job, super job.
It's a lot of time, it's a lot of patience.
Dan, Steve, keep pushing. Roger, keep pushing, okay? We're getting there. Paul, I'm sorry, I didn't see you over there. Okay, next up is the discussion and possible vote on appointing the Finance Committee to work with third-party consultant to compare the GIC health insurance plan to our existing plans. I see Mr. Cotter. And I'm just going to make a disclosure that although I do not participate in the plan, my colleagues in the police union do. However, I filed the disclosure with the town clerk and got an opinion from ethics, and that will satisfy the requirement. So,
Well, I participate in the plan. I don't know if any other members do.
do any other members on the board participate?
So,
I do too.
You do too?
I mean,
He's
I was,
retired.
I'm a,
So there's three of us.
not anymore.
Helen, it's you and I think.
Here I am.
I'm retired, but I'm on the plan. Huh?
You're not on
No.
Medicaid yet, right?
So I
But
can
do you have MedX?
Here.
I have a supplement, another supplement insurance.
Oh, different
Chairman, I
one?
don't know if it'll help, just as a reminder, you voted there was a vote at a prior
Right,
selectmen's meeting
Right.
to go ahead with this, and I think
right.
um,
This is a little bit
this is
narrower
probably
in
a
scope, though.
prod to say, hey, let's get going with
Yes.
this study, right?
Yes, yes.
I'm gonna
Shall I
recuse
start?
myself.
Yeah, I am too.
You two are going to recuse yourself? Okay, the three of us will deal with it. Just to bring everybody up to date, the language on this is a little bit narrow, because I think it wasn't just the GIC plan, John. It was to,
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that was a typo on my end with
Okay,
regards to not
yeah.
including other plans.
right, because I want the consultants to look at Mayflower and any other local plans. Whatever the best deal is, that we can balance for our employees and for the town budget, that's what we want to look at.
Absolutely.
So that was the plan. And the impetus for that was, Mr. Pratt, you want to come up and join the conversation? But
They made him sit in the back of the FinCom
You're
meeting.
limited to 10 words or less, though. The impetus for this, just to bring the town administrator up to snuff, was that we thought that we might be able to achieve some savings on a cursory examination of the plan, which could be used to go to fund new buildings and maintenance of buildings and whatever else we can do with that for the town. So, and Mr. Pratt was the one that brought the idea up originally, and then we punted it to Mr. Cotter here as a somewhat disinterested, apolitical party that has the financial training and background to go in there and be able to work with the consultants.
I was able to see Mr. Pratt's proposed scope of services for these consulting services, and in a short phrase, I would tell you that it has good bones.
Okay.
It looks pretty good. I would, I'd want to look at it. I'd want to look at it further.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
it's a pretty good starting point.
The other thing that we had, Jim, was that Mr. Pratt was kind enough to go out and dig up the number of firms that would be particularly qualified to
Right.
do this mission for us. And out of the ones that he was able to identify, some of them had conflicts
Sure.
with who they were representing and everything else.
Yep.
And it boiled down basically to one firm, Longfellow Associates, who, in discussions with Mr. Pratt, had indicated a willingness to do it for $4,500. So it's under the threshold of the public bid. And we need to get moving on this, because if we make any kind of plans to change, we have to go out and we have to negotiate those with the unions. And I think we have to notify the state sometime in January for a July change if we decide to go that route, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me just say something.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve.
Can I just, real quick, Mike?
Sure.
The catalyst for this, too, was the fact that our 2014 fiscal budget is based on a significant amount of cost savings from an anticipated reduction of a health insurance plan. We thought that was more of a product of what the board voted back in March with regards to going out and hiring a third party. But it looks like to date, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, that there was some kind of analysis done by EBS Forum that included getting an insurance advisory committee together with the prior town administrator. And it looks like the costs were reviewed, and I guess there was a agreement
a 3-year agreement put in place with a GIC lookalike plan.
Right.
The Finance Committee has not seen any numbers with regards to the cost savings, any kind of cost comparisons. So we kind of look at this as saying, even though there may be some kind of change to a lookalike plan, it seems to make sense to go forward with this analysis. In general, it seems like a worthy exercise.
And you know, we've been stressing this for the last couple of years. We did this with the town auditor, and we've done it with some other entities that have serviced us for years. Sometimes change is not a bad thing, a fresh outlook, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish with this. Remove any politics out of it that people think exist, like we're trying to do with the building committee, I guess, and just get an assessment, an objective assessment as to what we need to do.
Right. Mr. Chairman, we had I thought a really good discussion downstairs prior to the start of the Finance Committee meeting. Mr. Pratt's knowledge, I suppose, given his profession, here is impressive, and I had first worried about what the scope of services for this thing would be, because I didn't want politics being what it is. I didn't want, the study being used as a club.
Right.
So the scope of services itself was really, was really key to where are you going here? And I'm satisfied that even in its present form, you'd probably get an intellectually honest report from someone.
And that was another reason for taking Mr. Pratt and the Town Building Study Committee out of it.
And that was really important. He also knows that while you can compare yourself to other joint purchase groups, their claims experience over the prior 3 years may differ from ours.
Right.
The size of their groups.
A lot of factors.
The cost of providing medical care is cheaper in some parts of the state than it is in others. So just understand that when you get this boatload of data, and comparisons between plans, there are distinguishing characteristics and reasons why someone might be going through a better cycle than, than others. So you want to look at things over time.
Right.
And
The only thing I'll say to that is this has never been put out for a competitive bid, to my knowledge. And I don't think that that's appropriate when you're running
what's that, the
the
gateway?
the healthcare plan. Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think
that would surprise me if
Right.
that were,
I think that needs to be done on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah.
Just to keep everybody honest and competitive, do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
If they know that they've got to fight for our business, they're gonna give us maybe a much better deal than if nobody's looking or watching.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I was, for my last 2 years of service in Norton, I was chairman of the Southeastern Mass Health Group. It was a joint purchase group, 17 communities. We had about $85 or $90 million. Was the value of our book of business on an annual basis. There had been a period of time that we were going out to full bid every third year or so. My 2 years as chairman and the prior two before that, we went out every year. And we would have a cattle call, at a,
So you agree with
at a
that?
given, at a given place. I'd be surprised if Gateway wasn't doing that already.
A little bit of clarity on that, as I did talk to Pat Mahar a little bit about this today, and his process pretty much would be to, you look at your year's worth of experience rating on claims before the Gateway group sets its rates. So once these rates are set, he says they do compare them against other providers on a regular basis.
Okay. Oh, so this is a self-insured group, and so they set a working rate, and it's not a premium? Okay.
But I think this is a good exercise. I really do. It hasn't been done before. and-
It's short money for, I understand, the combined general government school appropriation is about $6 million. You're talking about $5,000, that might give you some useful information to guide administrative decisions. But also, the cost containment fight is never over.
No.
And
And it's gonna get worse.
The public is always looking, and the value, there is a value, one of the value items to me is the public perception that, that we're making a run at cost containment, making an honest run.
Right.
And
And I think we have to show the public that they're doing that.
I'm optimistic that if it follows the path that, that I saw in the scope of services there, that, this will be, intellectually honest, at least the outcome of thing. What you all do with it,
Right.
once you have that
Right.
data, you're on your,
Right.
whatever, interpretations or spins you put on the outcomes is what you do, but I like the path so far.
Well,
Having
I'll make the motion
a
then.
motion?
Could I just offer one clarification?
Sure.
I really need to do this. I wasn't here in March when you folks discussed this, and I just want to eliminate some confusion that may have occurred. The Town Building Study Committee has nothing to do with the review of the insurance, municipal insurance.
Right.
I came last July as a private citizen, just looking at ways of where the town was expending money. The $6 million that Mr. Purcell mentioned is really the cost for the town and the employees and retirees and the school. And, it just seemed to me that it's such a large amount of money, we should be looking at other plans. And
We should be examining everything, Steve.
and quite honestly, whether you go with Longfellow or any of the Boston Business Partners or Cook and Company or GBS Strategies, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, that's totally up to you. I contacted names that I was given. I had no relationships with any of them. And quite honestly, the Longfellow Benefits did the same kind of analysis for the town of Barnstable last October.
Right.
And I've seen the report that's on their website. It's a pretty comprehensive report. It's a side-by-side analysis. They gave, the town of Barnstable, which is part of the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group, their opinion. And that's, I think, the best thing they can do. For them, to do that and do a side-by-side comparison. I appreciate the fact that EBS Foreign goes out and looks at other plans to see, how they are.
But EBS Foreign gets a commission for,
Well,
okay?
my understanding is Gateway, because we have a stop-loss policy on there, they get a fee for that, for the stop-loss.
Right.
What EBS Foreign gets from, whether it's Blue Cross Blue Shield or Harvard Pilgrim, from the carriers, you'd have to ask EBS Foreign and Gateway. But I know what the business is, if there's contingent fees or commissions, based on business placed. That's part of the business. That's part of the brokerage business.
There are disclosure requirements these
Right.
days.
Yeah, and I don't know what the Board of Selectmen
You would
has
think,
seen
yeah.
or not seen, but it's,
Well, we haven't seen anything, and that's part of the problem.
yeah, but I do want to clarify that Town Building Study Committee has nothing to do with it. The only thing the Town Building Study Committee asked for was a copy of the financial reports.
Right.
So that we could understand what other
Available
money
funds
was
are.
being competed.
Right.
We had so much money in what we were competing against. So since we're looking at the financial needs of the town and to support buildings,
Right.
we wanted to understand, just like looking at, as boring
Right.
as it is, except for me and Meg, I guess, I like looking at the financial audit reports, and the actuarial reports, so, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, just, for the record, actually, before I request this, Mr. Pratt, you're live. We know what you do for a living, but I don't think the public has heard that.
Well,
We're making a distinction between your service to the building committee in this. You're involved because you're a healthcare professional.
Yeah,
What do you do?
Yeah, in July of last year, when I came before the board, I made sure that I clarified that, I work for WellPoint, which is the parent company of Blue Cross Blue Shield plans in 14 states, not in Massachusetts. It's a for-profit company. It is also the parent company of Unicare Health Insurance, which is one of the carriers that the Group Insurance Commission uses for the state plan and the municipal plans. We provide the indemnity and the Medicare supplement coverages for retirees to about 100,000 or so lives out of the 400 in the state. So I wanted to make sure that we, that was clear. But, I've spent 30 years in the insurance industry, and half of that was working in John Hancock and underwriting large group clients and making financials. So I don't have a actuarial background, which is why I can't do a benefit analysis. But Longfellow and any other independent consultants certainly do.
Right. Thank you.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just enter for the record, I'll hand these down. When I said I would be surprised if Gateway didn't, put their book of business out to bid every year, I do have, I can't say whether they put it out or not, but what I can give to you, a document dated April 8th of this year from the Gateway Group comparing Blue Cross Blue Shield plans with Harvard Pilgrim and Fallon Community Health Plan. So I don't see a GIC column there. That could well have been done, but in any case, some diligence has been done on Foreign and Gateway's behalf, at least in plan comparisons, trying to compare apples for apples.
And Mr. Carter has been kind enough, as the chairman of the Finance Committee, to offer to pay for this. So we're not only asking him to honcho it, we're asking him to dig the money out of his budget.
Well, we've got an answer to that.
I wouldn't be a good finance committee chairman without finding alternate funds. But I have talked to the interim town administrator about, this can be paid out of the insurance fund as well, the same plan that we had last year. And as Steve said, this is a separate exercise, so the finance committee has its own concerns about the scope to be worked on, so would like to obviously go over it with the interim town administrator.
Right.
As well as reviewing the vendors that
Absolutely.
might be selected as well.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second, Dick?
A second.
And we have a second. Do we have any further comments, questions, concerns, or? Okay. I think it's an excellent exercise. Work closely with Mr. Purcell, John, and I think between the two of you, we'll get an answer. If we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, or we need to look elsewhere, so.
Great.
Did we take the vote?
No.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0, 0 on. Thank you, folks. Okay, good
Good
luck.
night.
Keep us posted, will you? Okay.
Can we take a 2-minute break?
Yeah, how about if we take a 2-minute break and let everybody,
Driving home, when I left you, Helen, last night, I made every light on 44.
Green?
Huh?
Have to
Oh, yeah, you're right. They were all green.
accusing himself.
You ran the red ones.
I got home in a flash.
I was an angel of
There you go. There you go.
the next item up is update on the Town Administrator Screening Committee applicants, and I am going to recuse myself from this also, as did Ms. Hewens. And turn it over to Mr. Franny, and you guys can pick up some speed here and make up some time if you
Yeah, so don't walk too far, because you might resolve it right away. Does everyone have the little list in front of them of all the applicants?
I did earlier.
This is an update, and I think we'll still be accepting applicants for anyone that wants to serve on the committee. Basically, it's going to be a selectman, school committee member. I think the finance committee has already designated John Carter as the chairman to serve on the committee. We need to hear from the schools who their designated person's going to be.
September 9th.
Yeah.
September the 9th?
They're meeting on September 9th, and
Oh, good.
Elaine gave them a reminder.
And we're meeting on September 10th, so.
Oh, great.
I think Jim has a little bit of news for us as far as Collins Center.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to say that the Finance Committee tonight approved a reserve fund transfer request for an additional $7,000 to conduct tasks 3 and 4 on on their original proposal to the town. So that makes the contract value $14,000 plus out-of-pocket expenses, like for copying expenses and the like. Task 1 has been completed. The town administrator profile has been done. It's been posted online on the Collins Center line. It may be already now on the ICMA, the International City Managers Association website, and it will be on the Mass Municipal Association website. So it's out there. I imagine they're taking in applications now. So that's part of task 2. Just as a reminder for the public, tasks 3 and 4. Task 3 would be see the Collins Center working with the screening committee on a fairly intimate basis on reviewing an intermediate size list of applicants. That would include reference checks, background checks, and assistance in the conduct of the interviews, et cetera, et cetera. Task number 4 would include assistance to the Board of Selectmen with further background and reference checking and assisting the board with the preparation of interview questions and giving you any kind of technical assistance you need as far as approach goes. Once that's done, though, they push back. And, your short list of 3 or 4 people, I'm sure I assume correctly that once you get a short list of people, all of them can do the job, have the technical abilities to do the job. It then becomes, who do you think is the best fit for the town in terms of skill sets, ability to interact with the public, interact with the selectmen and other bodies and the like. So there was a 12-week schedule where almost dead on the proposed 12-week schedule. Got a little bit of a late start, but we're
That's
we're
why
right
I'm
on
glad
it.
we have them in place to expedite that.
Jim, if we were interested in their work, if they were an administrator or an assistant administrator, would the Collins Center arrange for a visit if we thought we needed to?
What kind of visit?
On
Mr.
the
Wood?
employment site of a candidate?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question. I've seen arranged visits at a candidate's work site. Say they work in Overshoe, Mass. There's a site visitation by Carver people there. But what I see a lot more of, in fact, almost exclusively, is a day set aside for the candidates to come to Carver
Okay.
and meet with.
All the different boards.
Yep. And you have arranged things. I did this in Ashland a short time ago, so that the candidates aren't running into one another, but you've got, the school superintendent in waiting. You've got your DPW and public safety people waiting. You've got, and you're looking for, the impressions, that people
then-
have. You have a session for the public
And then
on
we
that.
would meet with the different departments and get their input.
This would be
in our
pre-interview,
decision.
pre-final interview with the Board of Selectmen. And a good candidate will be a good listener and, take heed of some of the things that they heard, and certainly things that they've seen, and kind of bring that to the
Might that scare them
table.
away?
It might. If I had seen, in one job that I took, I never made this mistake again. I took a job, I was very pleased to do it. I had never seen the town manager's office before.
Okay.
Took me 2 years to
Really,
clean that thing up. Yeah.
Wow.
It was, So I resolved after that, I'm never gonna go talking to anyone again without getting a look at, the town hall and in my work environment. Yeah.
So we
I-
had, on
I
our,
almost ran away from you, Elaine, yes.
on our list of people that have applied, we have 4 citizens at large, and we have 3 people that applied as citizens at large, but they're serving on a committee, and then we have, for former town officials, we have 2 citizens, so there's plenty of space still left if people want to apply for it, and I don't know, I'd like to propose that we make our appointments at our next meeting, because we'll have the school committee recommendation from the night before, because they're on the 9th and we'll be on the 10th, so.
Yeah, I do think you have to get on it.
Yeah, we kind of need to, don't we?
Yeah.
Time-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep. Do we need a motion on that, or we're just
Yeah,
gonna do
you-
it? Set it up in your agenda?
Set it
We'll
up at the
we'll
next
just
meeting.
do it, yeah, we'll put it on
set
for
it
the,
up in
we'll
the
put it on for the next agenda, we'll make our appointments. And we already know that John Carter's gonna be on it, and,
He's the first name, he's the one and only
First
named
guy.
member so far.
yeah. So, we can invite the chairman and, Sarah back, and, because I think we're all wrapped up on this. Everything else all set?
Thank you, Mr. Franny. Thank you, everyone.
So we're on the second bullet under the items for discussion and possible vote.
One-day special license bartending service of New England for September 6th, noon to 4 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? 401 there. Next up, request to use Shirtlift Park for Carver Cub Scouts kickoff barbecue, September 14th, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Unanimous. Approval of minutes of May 13, 2028, June 3rd, 11:25, July 9th, and
There's
23rd.
one more.
What about
Church
the
of the Vine.
Park, the Church of the Vine?
Skipped
Oh,
over.
geez, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Make a
Request to use Shirtlift Park for Church of the Vine Family Fun Night on October 31, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Motion to approve.
We have a mo-
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is this the church on Tremont Street?
No, it's Wareham.
This is on Wareham
Yeah.
Street.
Wareham Street, okay, all right. Any questions, comments, concerns? I think they did this
They
last
were
year
here
too,
last
didn't they?
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess they had a great time and,
Yep.
yeah. All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous. Now approval of the minutes of May 13, 2028, June 3rd, 11:25, July 9th, and 23rd. Thank you, Elaine, for all the work that you
Yep.
put into this.
I have a change in the June 11th ones.
Do you want to borrow my gun, Elaine?
I'll give it to you. I'll give you my copy. Just on the selectmen's notes, what Franny had, I had also attended the Eagle Scout ceremony, so I'll give you the change on that.
And there is one change that was made to June 25th.
You have that for us? Okay.
This one for everybody.
Oh,
Change this to the 625? Is that what it is? Okay. All righty. Anybody have anything else?
I make a motion, we approve all the minutes for May 13th, 20th, 28th, June 3rd, June 11th, June 25th, July 9th, and July 23rd.
with the changes.
June 25th as amended.
And July.
Oh, and June 20,
And June 11th.
And 11th.
And
Your
July-
change.
as amended.
as amended.
What's your change?
July
Oh.
23rd, I was not here, I don't think, was I?
Oh, you just had a comment.
Yeah, I had attended the ceremony, so.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
I want to make two votes. Do you want,
Do we second that?
Yeah, I was absent, so why don't we, Jack, can you change that to everything but the July 23rd?
Okay, make the change, everything but July 23rd.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all the minutes as previously stated by the vice chairman. Do we have any comments? Any more changes, concerns, questions? Hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor? Yes, Mr. Ward? Oh, you're just getting ready to vote, okay. Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes for July 23rd.
Second.
A motion and a second.
But you abstain, right?
Yes, I will. Any further comments, questions?
Nope.
Concerns, recommendations? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None? And one abstention there. Okay, citizens' participation. Robert, 3 minutes. The egg timer is moving.
Robert Belbin, 26 Gate Street. I have here that, I'm not going to take credit for this, but it's a constant thing going on in this town that there's really lack of policies and procedures for boards, committees, commissions, authorities, or whatnot. It's basically up to that own boards, committees, and commissions to make your own policies and procedures. And everyone has their own different way because things aren't even written down in it. And that's kind of goes into some of the things you heard tonight, that meeting minutes for a certain committee were never done. One chairman may do it this way, another one may do it that way. I have here, I took it from the town of Norwell. It's their policy and procedure manual, and it has everything in it that a board, committee, and commission would need to do their job, and anybody could take this and say, okay, let's follow this, this is how we're gonna do it, everyone's the same, you have to follow the same policies in doing your meeting minutes, same procedures when you're filing your meeting minutes.
Okay.
All right, and it all follows the open meeting law, public records law. They did a lot of work with this, they did a lot of research with this. All right, and I'm not taking credit for this, but I'm taking credit to giving it to you guys. So you guys can take a look at it, give it to everybody, look at it, vet it, okay? And then have one policy and procedure for the whole town. And then inside that policy and procedure, you have a separate one for the zoning board, a separate one for the assessing board, a separate one for planning, conservation, redevelopment authority, whatever it is. You have an addendum to it that says, okay, these are our special circumstances for it, okay? Because I don't see it, and a lot of the things that deal with it, this would help, okay? So this is my
I have a
copy.
feeling that the town administrator has an answer to that, or
Well,
a comment.
I have not seen one. I'm on the redevelopment authority, and we don't have anything. I keep asking for stuff. The only policy the redevelopment authority has right now, besides their bylaws, is a policy for the secretary
Okay.
that I created.
All right,
So
Robert, is that
I'd like
copy
to-
for
you
Mr.
guys
Purcell?
Yeah, take a look at it.
Okay.
Because if you go to the town of Norwell's website, take a look at it.
Sure.
It's on there, and that's where I drew this from.
Okay.
Okay, my other thing was, due to some recent open meeting law complaints that I have filed, I feel that this town is desperately in need of open meeting law training, desperately. A couple of the complaints that I did file are severe, I feel are severe. They're my allegations, although they are on the website now for YouTube for people to see, but it's really simple. It's not a hard thing to do, but I think the town has to take responsibility for your actions and your inactions. And by not having yearly trainings in the open meeting law and public records law is doing a real disservice for this town. The last one we had, I think, was 2 years ago. All right, and more open meeting law complaints get filed. And some people want to attack me because I file them and it costs us money for legal counsel. But you know what? All you have to do is follow the laws. They're there, okay? But we have to turn around and do something.
Okay. We're going to take that under advisement. I will discuss that with Mr. Purcell, and we'll make a determination. Maybe we can get somebody from the AG's office down there to do a municipal government-wide course of instruction, perhaps, or, and as far as your policies and procedures, Jim, is that something you have?
Chairman, I'm not going to engage in a debate.
No,
No, I'm not going to debate at all, please.
But I will say your administrative assistant, not me, has been working and putting together a Town of Carver committee handbook that has policies and procedures,
Okay.
open meeting law.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's a signature spot for
Does everything-
people acknowledging receipt
Okay.
of it, et cetera. She also brought to my attention Compliment and Page's last proposal to you, the last time you put the thing out to bid. There's an entire section devoted to free workshops. It includes open meeting law, it includes public records law things. All we have to do is call for them. We've been, roughing out. It's the first cut, on this piece of clay. Some sort of schedule. Elaine is also dovetailing that with Maya, our insurance carriers, who award us bonus points for, being compliant
Right.
with these things and,
Right.
paying attention, so.
It's in our best interest to do that, yeah.
It's in the organizational
Right.
interest in terms of job knowledge and job growth. Elaine has taken it upon herself to start
Good.
putting this stuff together,
You know,
so.
it's something that we
it's
should
all a
do
work in
every year,
progress.
at a certain time, all,
So, we're being a little proactive here, Robert.
That's the goal. The
Give us a
goal is
little
to be
time. Yeah, no, hey,
proactive and do it.
something, you're prodding and we're moving,
Okay.
so.
Just for everyone's clarification, if you go on the state website for the Attorney General's office, under open meeting laws, they have determinations that they've filed for past cases of violations or whatnot, and that gives you a good understanding of what's right and what's wrong, and you can search that. The database is really good. You can search it on, if you're talking about deliberations or meeting minutes, or you can search the database and you can see how they've decided in the past to give you an understanding. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're gonna leave that Norwell copy, please, yeah?
Thank you.
Anybody else? Citizens participation? Okay, everybody's had enough fun for tonight, huh? Selectmen notes. Helen, would you like to kick it off?
No, I just wanted, it's the beginning of another school year, and I just wanted to wish all the Carver students, good wishes for the upcoming year, and for everybody that's off to college, that they take these new endeavors and enjoy it. And that's it.
Very good. Dick?
Yep, I'm kind of just wishing everybody to have a safe and enjoyable Labor Day weekend coming up. And the kids are going back to school, so yep. Bus safety is important.
Another year.
That's it.
Absolutely. Sarah?
Thank you. I just want to reiterate the Young People's Alliance of Carver open house event on Saturday, September 7th, noon to 4. I hope everyone can make it. Bring your kids. It sounds like it's going to be a fun event.
That's it?
Yep.
Jack?
well, back to what Bob had to say, I got some great news for our Board of Selectmen here. I got a certified letter from the Office of the Attorney General. This office received a complaint from Mr. John Fortier dated January 15th, alleging that the Carver Board of Selectmen violated the open meeting law. Specifically, the complaint alleges that the notice of the board's October 16th, 2012 meeting did not include enough specificity to reasonably inform the public that it would deliberate and vote to disband the audit committee. Additionally, the complaint alleges that the notice for the board's September 25th, 2012 meeting did not include enough specificity to reasonably inform the public that the board would deliberate and vote to reduce the building commissioner's position from full-time to part-time. The complaint was originally filed with the board as two complaints, both dated October 22nd, 2012. The board responded to both by letter dated November 20th, 2012. Following our review, we find that the board did not violate the open meeting law. In reaching this determination, we reviewed 2 complaints filed with the board dated October 22nd, the board's November 20th response, and the January 5th, 2013 complaint filed with our office. Additionally, we reviewed the notices and minutes of the board's September 25th, 2012 and October 16th, 2012 meetings. So we were exonerated on both of them. So I think we must be starting to learn our lessons.
Let's hope, because it certainly takes up a lot of our time.
Well, it's
Do
expensive.
you have anything else, Jack?
There's a letter here from the Wareham Police Department concerning our fire department. On August 6, 2013, the Wareham Police Department held its 4th annual Night Out celebration. The success of this event would not have been possible without your cooperation and assistance. That's the fire department. The smokehouse was very popular with the children. However, it was the members of your agency that made it meaningful and relevant. Your firefighters, under the direction of Deputy Chief Eric Germain, proved to be wonderful and gracious ambassadors for the town of Carver and its fire department. During the course of the evening, I received multiple compliments on the fire safety instruction your members provided. The professionalism that your firefighters exhibited is a perfect example of the reputation of the Carver Fire Department is known for. That's it.
Thank you, Jack. Mr. Purcell?
My gift to the board tonight, Mr. Chairman, is that I have no report.
It took
Wow.
Rick 14 years to catch on to that, you know that?
When you're at the end of an agenda, I found over the years that unless I published a report a week in advance, I was reporting on things that, or had planned on reporting on things that members of the Board of Selectmen during their term, you know, had taken up, and so,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Saving us from ourselves.
yes.
Just a couple
No,
of
I
items.
saved you from me.
Couple of items. Again, I want to, God bless you. I want to echo Mr. Ward's sentiment about Labor Day. It's a closing of the summer, you know, a lot of parties, a lot of barbecues, a lot of traveling. Please be safe out there. You know, school's started back up, so the buses are rolling and everything, and so it's just going to be a busy time. Just make sure you take some time out and practice safety. The next meeting, and Elaine and I have already talked about this, the Cub Scouts want to come in and make a presentation. Last year, we planted the tree that was donated by the Angleys, or was it 2 years ago? A couple years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, by the Angleys. And now,
Yeah, 9/11.
Cub Scouts have a stone for us to put in front of that
that
thing.
no.
Yeah, and I don't know if, Peter, you can pick that up on the thing at all or not, but, so anyways, what we'd like to do is have them come in and do a dedication. I'm hoping that the board will agree to start the meeting like at 6:30,
That's what I was thinking.
and we'll convene it outside, do the dedication, then come in here and finish the meeting. We've asked Elaine to contact the school, see if they have somebody that can sing the national anthem, and contact CCA-TV, maybe we can get a little coverage and outside. WATD might want to come down.
I thought Elaine was gonna sing the national anthem.
Elaine? Jim, you don't sing, do you?
Only if you want the room cleared.
Couple of beers?
Yeah, yeah, true.
So I just wanted to put that out to everybody. If that's acceptable, we can schedule a meeting next week, next meeting at 6:30 PM, and we'll convene outside and do the dedication and make
Fine.
make
Good,
sure Jack and his
good
wife,
idea.
daughter invited, since they donated the tree. So, the last thing, please keep our servicemen and women serving in our country around the globe in your thoughts and prayers. Let's bring them all home safe. And, you know, God bless you, the town of Carver, and the United States of America. And on that note, we'll be leaving to go into an executive session for negotiations with non-union personnel. Discuss litigation as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the public body, and not to return to open session. Did Did I get it?
Yes,
you
just
leave
a
out
point of
the-
clarification, Mr. Chairman, we had posted another
Right,
item on the agenda, deployment of police personnel.
Right.
We're not prepared to do that, so that will not be discussed.
thank you, sir. Okay, God bless and good night, folks. Thank you for being here.
No,
we
we
have
have
to
to
vote?
take a roll call vote.
Yep.
Yep.
All those in favor?
I vote Jack Franny, yes.
Roll call, yeah.
Roll call?
Sarah says aye.
Dick Ward, yes.
Helen Maroney, yes.
And I will abstain.